Welcome to a pod of wings and filth, where two voracious fantasy readers dive into the magical, gritty, and sometimes downright filthy world of fantasy.
On this podcast, we chat about our favorite fantasy books, from dragons and magic to the dark and twisted corners of fantastical realms.
I'm Heather, and sometimes I enjoy it when the villain wins.
I'm Morgan, and I don't think every book needs a sequel or a spinoff. Justice for standalones.
We've got a lot of opinions, a lot of passion, and even more books to talk about. So grab your favorite brew, maybe a magical artifact or two, and join us as we get into all things magic, wings, and a little bit of filth.
Content warning. Expect spice, swearing, spoilers, and strong opinions on dubious character choices. This is an adult show meant to discuss adult things, unfiltered for an adult audience. Today's episode will contain spoilers for all of Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. So if you're not ready for unhinged fandom energy, turn back now. Otherwise, spread your wings, grow your horns, and let's get filthy.
Hello, Morgan.
Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this book.
Me too. And this was unexpected surprise for me and one I am quite happy about. I did not think diving in, even for the first, I would say, I don't know, like good bit of the story did I realize what I was getting myself into. This one snuck up on me.
This is V.E. Schwab at her finest. This woman can do no wrong in my mind.
And this is what I've been told by you and others as well, that this book is very much so like Addie LaRue as far as her style of writing goes. And if I like that, then I will. And I am definitely going to read it now. I love the prose. I love it so much. I love her style of writing. I love that she gives great detail, but also doesn't linger for too long. We've talked about dense books before. This could be considered dense because there's a lot of timelines in it, and it is a longer book, yes.
At minimum,
But
she's a
reading
chunky girl.
It is a chonky girl, but it doesn't, at least to me, it did not feel that way.
It doesn't read that way at all. No.
Mm-mm.
This is captivating. All right, I'm excited to hear your summary. Take us away.
Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil opens with a poem. Bury my bones in the midnight soil. In my place will grow a feral rose, soft red petals hiding sharp white teeth. That image of beauty laced with violence sets the tone for a gothic tale about hunger, desire, and the monstrous cost of immortality. The story unfolds across centuries, weaving together the lives of Maria in 16th century Spain, Charlotte in 19th century England, and Alice in modern-day Boston. Each woman begins as restless, longing, and marked by her difference, only to be drawn into the orbit of Sabine, a vampire whose love is both a gift and a curse. For Maria, freedom comes at the cost of her humanity. Transformed into Sabine after years of suffocating control from a marriage to a viscount, she buries her old life and embraces the hunger and desires of her vampire nature. But immortality is a slow rot, and Sabine's passion curdles into cruelty over centuries. When she remakes Charlotte, the two become lovers and monsters together, bound by a promise that Charlotte can never break, never to harm her maker. That vow becomes a prison, trapping Charlotte in a cycle of love, violence, and guilt as Sabine decays into something unrecognizable. By the time Alice is pulled into their orbit, the cycle is already centuries deep. Remade by Sabine as a punishment, Alice becomes the newest feral rose, hungry, grieving, and forced to confront both her desires and the ruin left by those before her. The novel builds to a bloody game of survival, Sabine hunting, Charlotte bound by her promise, and Alice searching for a way to reclaim herself. In the end, Sabine falls by Alice's hand. Schwab crafts a lush, deliberative narrative that pays homage to vampire traditions while reshaping them. The book lingers in gothic stillness, full of roses, teeth, and shadows, echoing Anne Rice's elegance and Neil Gaiman's dreamlike strangeness. It's a story of women unmade and remade, of promises that become shackles, and of how hunger, whether for love, freedom, or blood, can define life. The final note is both brutal and hauntingly hopeful. Survival is not freedom, but in the ashes of what's been lost, there is always the chance to begin again.
Beautiful.
This was so good and so unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to confess, at first, I'm not saying I did not like it, but for the first bit reading into it, I was going, I like the writing. I'm interested in the characters. I'm interested in the world. Where are we going with this?
Right.
And then I got to a point where I no longer was asking that question. And then to a point where I was going back and rereading lines because I was like, ooh, what did she say? Wait a minute. What? Oh, that getting just lost in the language itself. Going back and rereading some because like that was really lovely. I haven't marked a book just because I like lines in it in a long
Yeah.
time, and I did that quite a bit in here. There
It's
are
so
quite a
good.
few sections that I marked where I went, "Oh, wow, that is spectacular." It was so good, Morgan.
It's so good. Again, I am a fangirl of Victoria Schwab's like no other. I have read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I have also read one of the Threads of Power books. And I realized after reading one of the Threads of Power that actually I needed to go back and read Darker Shades of Magic first. She has two other fantasy series, the Darker Shades of Magic series, and then the Threads of Power, Fragile Threads of Power. They're so well done. They're so good. But one of the things that I compare this to Addie LaRue mainly for is the way she interweaves time into the story. Addie LaRue has a little bit more of a time travel aspect, kind of, whereas this is just all of these layers of these different stories spanning centuries. When you first read Maria's story, you're in 16th century France. Never thought I would be there. And somehow still talking about toxic lesbian vampires,
Right?
which is
I did
where
not
I for sure was. Fuck yeah.
absolutely, and I was here for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think what started connecting me to early on is, and I said it in the summary, but there was definitely some familiarity. And I
Mm.
like that a lot that she took a lot of the like just addressed them directly. Like with Alice in particular, when Alice is like, what vampire things are real and not? And which is a really great question.
Yeah, a really
We
good way to
we've
do it.
yeah, we have been exposed, and it also invites us as the reader to join her on that journey to figure it out.
The funniest thing was we kind of already knew as the reader by the time Alice was asking those questions. So I found it particularly interesting to watch Alice come to those answers of like, oh, you're going to find out that like grave dirt, real bad, but like
Yes.
sunlight, it won't kill you. It'll just feel uncomfy.
Yes, it was fun that way. It was also
Mhm,
clever
mhm,
to kind of bring us into it. And well, and we got it with Maria also. And even though and that's what happens. We're diving right into this, so we're not avoiding spoilers. Spoilers are here.
Spoiler
So
warning.
we have three different characters that are made into vampires under different
Mhm,
circumstances. And I loved that each of their transformations were shown differently.
mhm.
Each of the journeys as they became vampires were shown to us in different ways, so we got to grasp a different aspect of it. It wasn't just
Yeah.
because it was a different character experiencing it differently, it was a different way of
Yeah.
seeing it. Like, I thought Charlotte's was whoa, whoa. Charlotte's
Yeah.
transformation, yeah, that one was the most profound one for me, and I thought it was done
Mhm,
so, so beautifully.
mhm.
But we got to learn all these things as we were going, and like you said, we would get some information from some of the earlier characters that would later play into, "Oh, now we do know this bit here with this character," even though we started off lost as this one particular character.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
the
loved it so
bouncing back and
much.
forth there, yeah, that bouncing back and forth, it's never confusing, it's never sometimes time jumping people don't do it well.
Right.
They just
I think
don't, and it
Victoria does
doesn't
a
make sense.
wonderful job.
It's done beautifully, and it makes sense for the way that we're
Mhm.
telling the story, and for us learning along with the characters. It really, really, really makes sense, and it's also because of the way things turn,
Right.
where they eventually turn like Maria, who becomes Sabine. I start off, and I think you're supposed to start off liking Maria.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah,
like,
she's
wanna
this
root for her.
fiery, which, is mirrored by her big curly fiery hair. They keep calling it she refers to it as like ropes of hair, these big ropes of
Yeah.
hair, and I was like, "How do you make ropes of hair?" I was very curious. Anyways, but she has this fiery curly hair, and so she is like a little bit of a spitfire. She has these brothers that want to contain her and marry her off, and she's like, "No, fuck that. Like if I have to do that, if that is what society has deemed I have to do, I'm gonna pick." And boy, does she pick poorly.
She picks poorly, but she also picked very intentionally. She knew that he was going to suck,
I
but
don't think she knew
Maria
how he was gonna
how
suck,
bad.
but
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
she knew he was gonna suck.
She picked him because he was rich and she
Mhm.
wanted to be rich.
She wanted to be
So,
comfortable,
yeah, she thought if I have to be someone's wife and I don't get to choose, then at least I'm going to live in a lap of luxury. I
which,
also
like, she nailed that, technically.
Oh, yeah. I thought the almost immediately, and this is the moment where I started to turn, and I was like, "Okay, I am totally into this now,"
Mm.
without being even super aware of the fact that I was the scenes with her when she was first sleeping with her viscount.
The Viscount.
Those
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah.
a
He's pretty gross. So he's literally, he's banging her out of procreation, whatever, but he's also really, like, creepy about the way he does it, and he wants her for her physicality, and that's really it. He's super attracted to her for whatever reason, and the continuous referencing to the way he pulls on her hair,
It
which I
was
think
very
might have been partly
visceral.
yeah, I think partly the way they described it, and maybe also the ropes of her hair kinda comes into that
Mhm,
also, connects the 2.
mhm.
But those moments and the way it was described, because this is not, sexual assault. She is accepting him. Also, she really doesn't have a choice.
Yeah, I feel
Like,
like this
that's the
maybe in
thing.
a modern day story would fall under dubious consent.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, she knows it is a part of her marriage to him. She understood that prior to marrying him. She understands that and does, I think, fully consent the first time they have sex. And also there's like a delay because they have to travel to his castle or whatever. And so she kind of wonders like maybe it won't be bad. Maybe it won't be that bad. And then it ends up definitely being that bad. And actually, that is what leads her to vampirism, basically. Like, she goes in search of this widow she had met back in her tiny little village in France who had mentioned herbs that could make you not keep the lining of your uterus if you didn't want to keep the lining of your, we'll call it that way. If you wanted to make your womb a hostile place, I think is how they refer to it. And she goes in search of that widow, and that's when she finds Sabine.
Yes. Which, if you're reading it from the start here, you definitely feel like, oh, Maria is the good guy in this story. She's going to be our heroine, maybe morally gray. At
Mhm.
least I was getting those vibes. And you do draw empathy for her. Yes, she's
Yeah.
agreed to sleeping with her husband, but the description of her experience with it, that's where I was like, I'm in now.
Yeah.
Now, I will say the sex scenes in this book are not overtly graphic,
No.
but at the same time, you have complete and total ability to see and feel what's going on without having to
Mhm.
have gratuitous explanation of it, which I
Mhm.
think would have actually taken away from the emotional aspect of it if it
Yeah.
was. But
Yeah.
it's not, and that's the thing. And I think this is something that's overlooked a lot when we talk about it, especially as women, is it doesn't have to be violent for it to be wrong or bad or have this part of you that's being stolen from you. There's an
Mhm.
entitlement here that he owns her and owns this, and it's his right to take it from her.
And that was very literal for the time. Like, there's something also very historically accurate. That's one of the things I love about these time jumps in Victoria's stories, especially in Addie LaRouche. She pays immense attention to detail to get those historical references right. He did own her. As awful as that is, and as much as we have come to know in 2025, you cannot own another being. He did. For all intents and purposes, she was his property. He had earned her, he had bought her with a dowry, and he owned her, her body, and her ability to procreate. That
Yep.
was one of the
Yep.
reasons why at one point he goes off to war or something, and she's like, "I get to stay in the castle by myself. Oh my God." And he's like, "What are you talking about? You have to go live at my parents' house." And,
Yeah, you're a woman.
it's
You can't be left alone.
exactly. And she goes, "Wait, what?" Like, there's, like, a record scratch moment for her where she's like, "Fuck." Like, I thought I had earned by moving up in the world in this way, by marrying up, because she's just a commoner, and a lot of people in his world view her that way, even though she's very
That
beautiful and
is
very
particularly
pretty.
her mother-in-law likes to point out. Exactly. In fact,
She's
she basically
awful.
tells her yeah, she tells her that if she had babies, she'd wanna just go drown them in the water because they come from her. Yeah, she flat out tells her that. That's not me, like, wrapping it up nicely for you in a short little description.
Nope.
She's like, "No, I would murder your children because they come from you, but I
Which
can't, but
the
I'd want to."
irony of that though, right? Like, and this is again that historically accurate piece. She's a hell of a mother-in-law. Like, what a peach. But also, you are criticizing my inability to get pregnant, which, she doesn't know at that time that Maria is taking these herbs intentionally to not get pregnant. So I'm infertile, therefore I'm worthless. But also if I was fertile and I was pregnant and gave birth to a child, you would drown them.
Yes. So there's no win for
There's
her
no winning.
whatsoever. There's no
There's no
winning
winning.
whatsoever. So she's living in a very hostile environment. She carries it very well because she's not afraid of conflict at all.
No,
That develops, unfortunately, in not such a good way as time goes on. But that
no.
fire and that what I like about her in the beginning
Mm-hmm.
is great. Her stepmother says these awful, or not stepmother, her mother-in-law says these awful
Mm-hmm.
things to her. But she doesn't just sit there silently and go, okay, yes. She comes back with snarky, snotty
She says, like,
responses.
remind me to not let you babysit. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's great. So you have that sense of validation, like, oh, well, she's not going to be a quiet little mouse. I am more interested in this story. Let's see where this goes. So you're rooting for her.
you are rooting for her for sure. In a lot of interviews, and I think in a lot of the descriptions of these books, Victoria talks about the concept of hunger. That like that is the theme of the book is hunger. And I think Maria at the beginning is such an interesting concept of hunger because she's hungering for something better, but she doesn't fucking know how to get it. And she has no idea how to access it. And it's such an interesting flavor of it because for the rest of the story, we get hunger for romance, we get hunger for love, we get hunger for blood, we get hunger for a lot
The
of more
hunt,
literal, the hunt. Oh my God.
the
It-
hunt was the big theme for me.
yeah.
I was all about that. Well, I mean, and this is the first Victoria Schwab book I've read, but I've listened to a lot of interviews with her and I've read a lot about what other people have said about her. And one of the things that she's most interested in is primal urges and primal
Mm-hmm.
instincts about humans. And she likes exploring that. This book gets it. Like,
It
it
sure
gets it.
does. It's so
Yeah.
good. It's so good. So eventually, Maria's hunger becomes enough that she consumes Sabine and becomes Sabine, which I find really interesting because I didn't get the sense that the original Sabine, the widow, was actually all that hungry.
No, well, we learn later with Mateo, who is an
I
older
love
vampire.
Mateo.
Yeah, that was absolutely one of my favorite sections.
Mm-hmm.
I loved being in Venice. But we learned from Matteo, who's an older vampire and who has basically taken up Venice as his territory.
Mm-hmm.
And he eventually takes her on and kind of teaches her the right way to do things. If you want to stay in one place, you have to be smart, you have to be clever. And he
Mm-hmm.
teaches her how to essentially be a better vampire. But one of the things that we learned right away, and I think is very interesting too, is that the hunger is never fulfilled.
Yeah, ever. It
That
will
longing
never
will
be sated.
Nope. Never satisfied. So it doesn't matter how much you drink. You can gorge yourself and you're still going to feel the same. So, and then there was also the warning of, and the further you go on, the more you lose your sense of humanity, which I think was
Yeah.
also why Mateo probably did have the relationships with humans that he did. And I think a lot of the other vampire characters we saw connected
Yeah.
with human and developed those relationships was to try and remain somewhat connected to their humanity. So they didn't
And I don't think Sabine cared. That was such an
know.
interesting piece of it, right? When we get to Charlotte and Alice, right? We learn how much they want to hold on to their humanity. That is one of their driving forces is the desire to hold on, the hunger to hold on to their humanity and to not let that rot away. I don't get at almost any point in the story, even when Sabine loves Charlotte, when that is actually true, I don't get the sense at any point that she cares about the parts that are rotting away. Even
No.
though she saw, like, she cared about Mateo. I loved their friendship that developed from that. That was really beautiful. Getting to witness him have a relationship with a human for as long as he did. And she got to have a relationship with his partner whose name I cannot remember.
Alessandro?
Alessandro? Yeah, I think that's right. And then he tries to replace Alessandro with Gio, and that goes horribly. She finds a platonic care, like she's able to care about Mateo. She's able to respect him, I think. But at no point does she desire to hold on to her humanity. When it is flaking
No.
away, she goes, okay, bye.
I think that's why Sabine picked her. Also,
Mm,
when met Mateo and they did finally introduce each other, she mentioned that her maker's name was Sabine, and he went, or she said her name was Sabine. He goes,
Mm.
Sabine?
Mm.
So there's some of the did they have they ran into each other over the years? But the
Sure.
original Sabine, our Sabine slash Maria's maker,
Mhm.
um, I didn't like you said, I didn't get a sense that she was hungry, but I also had the sense of her coldness because
Sure.
she made her and she just went on. She didn't tell her anything. She didn't let her know any of the things
Well,
she
she
needed to
died.
know. Yeah, yeah.
She died. She
So
couldn't tell her any of those things.
no, but she didn't beforehand or anything either.
No, but
There was
neither
none
did
of that.
Sabine. Well, that's what's interesting, right? Like, we
Yeah.
don't get that in any of the stories. Like, Sabine, our Maria Sabine, which I guess this is a tricky part about describing this part of the book.
Yes. Yes.
Our Sabine, Maria Sabine, when she makes Charlotte, and Charlotte is recounting that memory, she describes a realization that she came to later. Would she have let me live if I had said no? Because Sabine does not explain to her, I'm going to make you a vampire. I'm going to make
Nope.
you intolerant to the sun. She doesn't explain any of those things. And neither did the original Sabine. And then, of course, neither did Alice didn't even know that it was Sabine who made her.
Which is, I think, where that sense of cruelty already exists, and also other intentions. So I think this is one of those times where it's very interesting to go, how much of this is actual evil and how much of this is made monster?
Right.
And looking at who they were before they became vampires
Mm-hmm.
is interesting. Who made them and nurtured them into what they were?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Charlotte is probably the best example of that, of getting
Yeah,
made.
Charlotte is such an interesting one, right? Because as she's telling you her story, which I really loved, Maria Sabine and Alice are first person POV fully. Charlotte is, I would say, like third person, but also first person, because she is recounting her making and her journey with Sabine in the past. And you get the sense she's telling the story. So it's a little different in that way. But as Charlotte is recounting it, she describes that she was always known for having her heart on her sleeve and for loving really bigly. And she's honestly so sweet in that way. I really loved her.
Yeah. I liked her a lot at first, which I knew was
Yeah.
dangerous.
And then towards the end with Alice, there's this interesting twist. You can see even she has brought it away, but she believes, right, that she's doing the righteous thing by not letting Alice live, even though, Alice ends up killing her. She thinks she's doing the right thing. She thinks she is still living in her own humanness and values when really she's not.
No, no, that was like the point that Alice hit with, and I went, I didn't even like really. I mean, I mentioned I left myself the note that I showed Morgan before that I didn't know what I meant. Isolation of 100 years.
Mhm.
The isolation of 100 years, because that's how long she and Sabine spent together.
Yeah.
So we can say to an extent, I think, that, oh yeah, she was kind of groomed and indoctrinated and she let the hunger take control of her, because by this point she is a
Gone.
monster.
Yeah,
She
for
is
sure.
gone. She is a monster. So they are running through the world like eating and killing people, women, children, it doesn't matter. In fact, Sabine, I believe, likes children more.
Yeah, she talks about liking the taste of their fear.
Yeah,
And to
yeah,
be
it's
fair, like Charlotte is horrified by it. Charlotte thinks
yeah.
she is keeping the monster of Sabine in check. The reality is that she's not, and no one can.
No, no. So she's along for the ride with her. And I think at
Hmm.
some point she does go, this is too much. And also she has a breaking point. But Alice recognizes, because she's objective and she's only been a vampire for a few days. So her looking in now is
Poor Alice.
you know what? Yeah, maybe you aren't as bad as her, but you're still a fucking monster. You were out there eating everybody up right with her. Like, Alice is the voice of reason. And I loved that so much. And I also appreciated that I lost sight of that. I got so wrapped up in Charlotte's story,
Yeah.
and that I was like, oh no, I feel so bad for her. I think, like, in the buddy read, you could even see my descent of Charlotte, Charlotte, oh dear Charlotte. I would also like to say I really, really appreciate, and this shows a wonderful sign of a good writer.
Mm.
Usually when you hit like the 2/3 mark of a
Hmm.
story and you introduce another main character and start showing their story from the point of view, and you're getting their origin story at thirds into your story, usually that's going to be, oh, I'm checking out for a bit. Or I'll go start another book because I've lost interest
Sucked
because you
you right
basically,
back in.
I was in it right away. I'm like, who is Charlotte? And then I was interested in Charlotte. I was
Mhm.
just, and that is a testament to a good writer to
Yeah,
be able
she
to
did
make
such a
that
beautiful
work.
job with that. I think my argument is that, and I think I made a comment in the buddy read of like, it is one of the moments of hunger. Alice is hungering, desiring so deeply the answers to what has happened to her. She wants to know, why the fuck has this happened? How the fuck has this happened? The only name I know is Lottie. I have this nickname. That's all I've got. And there were these 3 little drops of blood on the sheets. Like, if there had not been, can you imagine how much harder this would have been to come to terms with the fact that you're a vampire?
But she wouldn't even say the word for like the longest time, even though
I
she knew
know
that's what it
it
was.
was honestly very sweet. I really liked Alice,
I did too.
but her desire for Charlotte's story and for the answers make you want it even more as the reader. And so when you finally get to Charlotte's story and you get Charlotte's origin story, like there's like a deep breath happening of like, oh, finally, like I've been holding my breath with Alice trying to find it and now we get it. And I think that speaks to that, right? Like if it had gone on maybe one more page, I'd be like, come on, give me Charlotte already.
Yes.
Finally. But no, it was like this beautiful tension and it stretched and it was kind of painful and that was true to it.
I love how she made us really, really care about Maria and Sabine and made us really, really care about Charlotte. And
Yeah.
I still wouldn't say Charlotte was a villain with a capital V, but she was a villain. She absolutely was. And I had empathy for her. But once Alice called her out, I'm like, girl's right. She's right, damn it.
She was right, but she also, again, what Alice could never comprehend, and of course she can't, is what happens and the parts of you that decay over time. That's part of this, right? So one of the big shifts that Charlotte makes in her story is when she finally gets away from Sabine. She leaves Sabine, which like, God, I'm rooting for you so badly. She finally chooses to leave her toxic partner. So toxic, so abusive, so bad. Oh my God.
It was hard to read.
It was really hard to read. It was so uncomfortable and visceral, but also in that really
Real.
real. But one of the decisions that Charlotte makes when she leaves Sabine and when she moves to America is I will no longer kill.
Yeah.
I will feed, but I will no longer kill. And I felt for her. She's like, how do I make an ethical decision with my vampiric nature? That's an impossible question. How do you be an
Yeah.
ethical vampire? I don't think there's a right answer to that. I think
No,
Alice
no.
thinks that there is, and there is not. So when she found out Charlotte's telling the story and realizes that all of her past lovers have been turned by Sabine, Sabine is torturing her. She's following her. And every lover that Charlotte takes, Sabine then turns, even though Charlotte doesn't turn them. She feeds on them. She lets them live. They live very happily. Like, I think it is the best case scenario if you're going to be a vampire.
If you're going to, this was one of the parts that I went, the question of, how do you live as a vampire and still have some morality, some humanity in you? That part between Sabine and Charlotte, where the friction was met, where Charlotte's like, no, I want to be a good guy. And Sabine's like, no, this is our nature. We must kill. That was 100% Lestat and Louis energy. And from Interview with a Vampire, see the movie, read the book, whichever, it's exactly the same. It's that moral debate of, should you just be the killer? This is who and what you are. Does this make you actually villainous or bad? Or are you just this thing? Are you just doing what you're made to do? Or are there other options? Like Louis ended up eventually, once he and Lestat split up, he ended up looking to only kill the evildoer. So
Right.
they're telepathic, which I love too, that the telepathy and some of the vampire strength develop over time,
Huh?
but it's still taking a life and it's still feeding the hunger too.
Mhm.
All of those things, there's a lot of complexity to it, which makes it so interesting. Like I said, on paper, they're all kind of villains, but at the same time, I like them all. I still even have, at the end, I have some empathy for Sabine. I do, which is extraordinary.
Yeah. It's truly amazing that you can have any empathy for Sabine in the end. When she did not drink the blood with the grave dirt in it, which, like, that was masterful. I know we've been using that word a lot lately, but honestly, we've just been really, reading really fucking good books,
I was
really
gonna say, we've been
well-written
reading
books.
really good books where it's concerned that
Like, to be fair, I just haven't read a bad book in a while, to be honest, and that is a life I'd like to continue to live. That sounds great.
Nice.
But when she didn't drink the blood with the grave dirt in it, which I loved that there was and
I
that
love that
story.
idea of poisoning too, it's so clever.
Yes, it was honestly really clever. The fact that Charlotte had never thought about it blows my mind, but also, different strokes, different folks. And Sabine is like, I don't drink. What did she say? Already decanted?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so
She was like,
detached,
talk
wildly
about having
detached.
lost your humanity, my guy. Like, that's a fucking person. But sure, okay, great. And Alice is like, yeah, now I have to come up with some other way to kill her. And she has the whole scene in the shower. I was just like, this is impeccable. I think it's so good. And I will say the end of this is a little different than, which of course, but a little different than the way she ends Addie LaRue. Like, you do get a lot of closure here that you don't get in Addie. And I love how different that is. I love how beautiful that is. You get real close. Like, no, we don't find out where Alice goes or if Alice ever makes any future vampires or what it looks like when Alice loses her humanity. But we get a finish to Sabine and to Charlotte.
Which, how do you feel about Charlotte's end, though? How did that hit you?
A little weird in the moment. At first, I was like, I don't know. And then I was like, no, that's kind of satisfying, actually. Especially because she kind of told on herself. Like, it was again her own feelings being worn on her sleeve. If she had not had that same hairbrush that she had described to Alice that she used to kill Penny, it might not have given her intentions away as much in the end. And then Alice wouldn't have killed her. Maybe Charlotte would have killed her. But instead, because she had held on, honestly, to a piece of her own humanity in that like meaning making way. As humans, we make meaning out of everything all the time, sometimes too much. So it ended up actually being kind of satisfying. I was like, oh, you kind of got yourself at the end.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of how I felt. First of all, I was surprised.
Mhm.
I was and I wasn't, but I went, "Oh, no, 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 don't." Oh, and then I went, well, yeah. And then I kind of felt very good for her, I guess.
That's what
Like,
you wrote at the
that's,
end.
yeah, that's how I kind of felt about all of it and it was like my overall feeling for it. And it was because of that specific moment that
Mhm.
nailed it for me because you do read the majority of this story from two other perspectives. So
Mhm.
you get like 2/3 of the book from other perspectives, and you grow to care about them and not want to necessarily. This is why I love an author that can write a good villain or can
Mhm.
write a character
I wanna keep
morally
reading
gray,
them.
dark. Yeah, there's something that's freeing about it. There's something that is just kind of like this isn't a path that we're reading fantasy, so we're reading paths that we would not choose for ourselves, and it is so interesting to go down them and see what makes them work. So,
Yeah.
while we might not be like, "Yay, Sabine, we want you to live and continue to, like, kill people." Obviously, we want her to stop. We want her
Yeah.
to end. She has done
Yeah.
some really fucked up things at this point, but I also remember her as Maria.
Mhm.
And I also remember those moments of being violated in bed
Mm.
and how her mother-in-law treated her and all of the things that she went through up to that point. And then her time with Matteo, where I really did enjoy her and think at that point, maybe she's going to turn in Matteo's direction and she's not going to go down this vicious path, which we were wrong about, or I was wrong about,
Yeah.
which is fine, which is absolutely fine. But I think that makes that ending, that payoff that much more
Yeah.
impactful because I didn't want Charlotte to die.
I didn't want
I
Charlotte to die.
no, but at the same time, I'm like, especially after what we went through with Alice, because we'd been in
Mhm.
Alice's head. Alice was she
Mm.
was the threat through the whole thing, who was having her own flashbacks about her sister. And
Yeah.
that was very, very painful and sweet. And it made us, or made me certainly feel so much more empathy for Alice as a person
Mhm.
that at the end I realized, oh, yeah, she's the one who's the real victim of this whole entire situation. She's a pawn basically
Mhm.
in their lover's quarrel. And she got
Yeah.
stuck in the middle. And now her parents have lost, or her father at the very least has lost his wife and two of his daughters.
Yeah.
And her stepmother seemed like she was actually a really nice woman who
I thought reading, did you read her as Caddy or Katie?
Yeah.
Caddy.
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 Yeah, Caddy.
Because it was Catherine. So I read it
Yeah.
as Caddy. Reading about her inability to accept her stepmother in that way, that like righteous teenage angst energy, that was real. And
Yeah.
these were these little flashbacks to her life in Scotland, which I loved that she was Scottish. I don't know why, but it just felt
Me too.
perfect. I also have to admit, I did my master's program at a school in Boston. And so all of the time we spent with Alice in Boston around Harvard, so fucking nostalgic to me. I was like, I know what you're talking about. I've been there. I've been there. That's amazing.
It makes
The
the
tea
setting
is the
feel more
best.
real.
Hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna
Um,
connect to it.
right. But reading those flashbacks with her sister, it was impressive how much Victoria was able to pack in, so much emotion she was able to pack in to these tiny little flashbacks that Alice was using to dissociate from the discomfort of the moment. Like, these memories weren't even just showing up for like context. They were truly, Alice was trying to get out of a moment where she felt uncomfortable. Talk about anxiety,
Yeah,
girlfriend.
and then they would interrupt her recall of them multiple times, which was great
Which
because
was
that's
good
well,
because she could come
yeah,
back into herself.
yep. Which I think both of us noted at some point. The way that her anxiety was written was so real.
So
Um,
visceral, man.
yeah, it was 100% tangible. It was if I think most people have experienced anxiety. I think it's kind of hard to live in modern day society and not have experienced anxiety. But for some people, myself included, and it's something that I continue to work on, it's something that in fact lately it's been really, really bad. It's something that sometimes just like literally like is a living force inside you at all time. It's a sense of discomfort inside your body that you have. And sometimes you feel like you don't have control of it. And what your mind does is it kind of goes off to somewhere else, like dissociation. That's definitely
Mm-hmm.
a go-to with it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the parentheses.
Mm.
I first of all, neurodivergent as fuck.
Yeah, that's how I write every text. Here's thought A plugged in with the thought that goes with it in parentheses, continuing thought A.
Yeah. Yes, I was like, I felt very seen. I felt
Mm-hmm.
very seen in that. Even though my anxiety does manifest differently than hers, it felt really good to see a character like that on the page
Mm-hmm.
and where it was shown and not just described or explained through completed actions also. It was a living force within her. And to connect that to her memories of her sister that came back later was very, very, very impressive, especially since it becomes one of the final things that we
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
But
I thought it was really beautiful too, especially if we keep talking about the theme of hunger, right? Alice's hunger changes dramatically. Obviously, she becomes a vampire, but in the scenes with her sister at the beginning, she is hungering for her sister to see her, to see that there is another way of being. You don't have to be in so much pain. And she, she was younger when their mother died, and there are things that are different, but she's hungering to be seen. And so she allows herself to be seen by this seemingly very kind, sweet stepmother figure, which is it's not often we get a really beautiful step parent in some of these fantasy stories, but Eloise was a beautiful, like healthy, loving, kind step parent. That
I
poor
felt
woman.
bad for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt bad for her. And this is a lovely example of feeling bad for Eloise without having to blame Caddy.
No, not at all. I didn't. I
Again, there's
totally understood why Caddy was in so much pain. And like,
yep.
wow, their family dynamic needed some family therapy. But whatever. That's a different argument for a different day.
That was a solution that could have
It could have helped a lot.
their
But also, we're
situation.
in this tiny little town in Scotland. We maybe don't have great mental health. Whatever. Anyways, Alice's hunger at that moment is to be seen by her sister. Over the course of the story, you realize that Alice's hunger is actually to be seen by herself, to let herself be seen. She has learned to quiet herself in her relationship with her sister, to let her sister's big emotions live and be seen and be heard, because they are more important when really they're not. And then Alice, this is her whole thing. She moves to the US. She moves to Boston. She gets into Harvard, which, like, we love a smart female main character. Fuck yeah. And then we realize that as she's trying to become new Alice, she wants to let herself be seen. And it's really painful for her and it's really hard. And that hunger drives everything with her. It's really, Victoria, you're just so good. You're just so
Yeah.
good.
Well, that whole entire theme with the being remade in general, I love that Alice has started that way. Also, that's something I've experienced many times in my life. Sometimes it's been in brevity where I've been at work and I'm bored. So I've decided to make up a story that I'm a character and I speak with a different accent and I will be that person for my whole entire shift. Like I used to,
Mhm.
when I worked at Blockbuster when I was in college, I would make up a different name for who I was the whole entire shift and I would be
R.I.P.
that personality.
Blockbuster.
R.I.P. Blockbuster. I miss that. That was the best time ever. But
Mhm.
I would do stuff like that, and it was at, it was at an similar age to Alice too, where I would do that, and it wasn't just it was definitely partly because I was trying to entertain myself 100%, but the
Sure.
other part was I really didn't know who I was at that point, and I was having the separation of I was moving out of my parents' house, I was in college, I had a full-time job, I was very independent for the first time in my life, but I didn't see myself as a person outside of who I was from my family
Right.
or what other people had perceived of me. And it wasn't really something that I had thought about a lot. Now,
Mm.
and reading this book is actually what triggered this whole line of thought, which is one of the beautiful things about reading stories like this is how, if you're open and you're curious, you can find things about yourself that you might not have realized. And it was
Even
that
in stories with characters who have completely different life stories to you.
exactly because Alice's personality and mine are not the same.
Well, and I also
Yeah.
don't need to be a toxic lesbian vampire to feel those feelings.
No, no, it's and that's the beauty of being able to connect that way that we all have similar things, but we experience them differently, that's all. But
Mhm.
I have been very hyper aware of doing that and going, "Well, I don't like this situation, so I'm gonna pretend to be this person tonight, and then here's the mask." I have done that a lot in my life. So reading her saying it there, which I think this is another really beautiful thing I'd like to point out as reading stories that
Mm.
are dark or sometimes emotionally
Yeah.
difficult, is a lot of times I've read people saying, particularly like in dark romance, as an example, this is not dark romance at all, but that sometimes certain traumas are being exploited.
Sure. I
I
don't think
I
this is
get
that, but I know what you mean.
no, but what I find a lot in stories like that is a lot of us have experienced certain things. I think sexual assault is a really good example. You read these stories and you find someone that has, and then afterwards, how their life has shifted. And
Mhm.
suddenly, that's not just your story. It's not just your pain. And also, you're
Mhm.
reading it and you know when someone has experienced that and they're not just writing about it if
Right.
you have. So all of a sudden, you're not alone anymore.
Mhm.
It's not just you. It's not just a feeling that only you have experienced. And also, when you think about it, you're not always going to think about how it was only you. You might think about the character in the story instead. It's
Mhm.
it's so cathartic.
Yeah.
So I thought about a lot of stuff reading this book, obviously, but it was great.
Yeah, brought up a lot of personal shit for you,
Yeah.
which is I think again, it's like an added perk bonus. I don't read these stories for the purposes. I don't think when I'm walking through the bookstore, wow, I wonder what this toxic lesbian vampire story is going to teach me about myself. I don't. I don't think about that. But one of the perks of diving into especially fiction in this way, and particularly in my mind, fantasy in this way, is that it can offer you that without that having to be the intention at all.
It's a wonderful gift. It really
It's
is.
just a perk.
It's absolutely that. I love it when that happens. I wasn't looking for that. Like you said, this is a story that spans over 5 centuries with toxic lesbian vampires. That was not what I was expecting getting into this. And yet here I was going, well, that's really made me think and feel about that. And it's in a really good way. It feels good. And also it makes me respect the author to go, oh, I would like to hug you now.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh my god. I mean, A, just because she's a talented woman, but B, because, oh, I think you've been through some shit. And I
Yeah,
see you. I see you.
exactly.
Speaking of expectations and maybe missed expectations, do we want to shift into our 1 star and our 5 star reviews?
Oh, yeah. I thought these were really good. I found them both on Goodreads. I didn't even go
Mhm.
look on Storygraph because I felt like these were both, like, on
They're
point.
great. Uh-huh. So the 1 star is brought to us from Tig. Says, Schwab does not have the freak to pull off a story like this, I'm afraid. Slanty face. Also, the marketing was way off, which annoys me the most. I feel lied to. Don't take advantage of my freak yearning. to lure me into a nothing burger slog that is nothing like you promised it would be, shaking my head. My friend, Tig, my friend, dear Tig, what part of this was missold to you? Because if you were sold toxic lesbian vampires, which was the slogan that I saw everywhere, that's what I was sold by the marketing team. It's in here. It's what all of these 500, 600 pages are.
Yep. It is that. It is 100% that. I did not see all of that advertising. I believe you. That is what it is.
Yeah,
And
I didn't come up
just
with
love-
toxic lesbian vampires. That's not on me. I almost wonder if this person thought they were entering a toxic lesbian vampire version of all the other romantasy stories we've been.
Yeah, this isn't romantasy at all.
Victoria doesn't go in that category. She doesn't write that.
Yeah.
That's not her bag. So I think you just misunderstood the marketing.
You know what? Yeah, I think this is something that this is, I think, the third time we've seen specifically this, where someone was upset by either too much or too little. I think it's been too little sexy time on the page. I think there's like this expectation now, if there's a woman who writes fantasy, that it's just going to be a romantasy, and that's not the case. And even in romantasy, it's not always like all about sex. Like a lot of the time it's not.
If you want smut, go find smut. Like that's fine. If you want erotica, if you want smut, those stories are out there, I promise you. But they're not New York Times best-selling novels. I'm sorry. They're not. And they're not ever going to be. Like, no. But they're out there. You just got to go find yourself a good indie author or a good self-published Amazon author. Amazon aside.
Tons of
It's
them.
all over. But you are not going to find that with V.E. Schwab.
Even just like start following some Bookstagram girls that literally will specifically start breaking down lists of not just the erotica that you're interested in, because Morgan use the right term. What you're looking for is erotica, which is also different than smut. Smut is sex within a story. Erotica
is just porn.
It is.
Which is fine.
Put together a little bit of a story for the sex. Yes, I have read some erotica over the last year. Some of it has been very good and some of it has been really bad. It's out, but the point is there is a fuck ton of it. I had no idea how much there was. I just like scratched the surface just to, play my triathlete games. And I was like, I don't want to go in any further because this is a rabbit hole I do not want to go down right now. There's just so much. It's like a whole another existence, which good for everybody who's there. That's just not where I'm at right now.
You and I both read in such a way that we like a little bit of variety. I like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So I will read those stories. I will read that incredibly smutty. The plot is holding together with these little tiny pins to make sure that the sex makes sense. Great. Amazing. I fucking love it. Am I reading that all the time? No. But that's because I'm not reading anything all the time. I'm going from Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil to sci-fi rabbits, back to Carissa Broadbent, which is like, talk about yearning, man. And I'm bopping all over the place because I can't just sit still and be in one place for too long. But yeah, if you were looking for smut and or erotica, you were not going to find it here. And I'm sorry, but you misled yourself.
Yeah. And then they are talking about the marketing too. I mean, I've never read a V.E. Schwab book. I did not see the marketing specifically for this book. I did not think she was a writer that, number one, I was going to get romantasy from, or B, was going to get smut from. I didn't anticipate any of that, and there wasn't, but I also didn't anticipate that. I think that part of the problem, which we continue to discuss this was a really funny one, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Which is why I picked it. But these 1-star reviews, so many of them are based off of expectations, and they are not reasonable expectations. And I just don't think the authors deserve 1 star for that.
I agree. And I think if we could control it more, we would. But unfortunately, the masses be massing,
They do.
Right. You want to take us to the beautiful 5-star review you found for us?
Yes. This was great. This was from Laura Greenhow. This was exquisite. Toxic, lesbian, vampires. There is yearning, obsession, abuse, female rage, morally great characters, and revenge, all while exploring the line between holding on to and letting go of the past. V.E. Schwab has such an atmospheric and poetic writing style. The story was gothic, haunting, and extremely thought-provoking. It is fairly slow-paced, but this allows you to form a strong emotional connection with these characters. It gives you so much depth into the story. The three women this story follows were all complex and intriguing characters. If you loved A Dowry of Blood or The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, you will absolutely devour this book. I love that she said devour too.
Yeah, I
Like,
know, me too. I
first of all,
appreciate
well
that.
written. But
Uh-huh.
second, she says what's great about it. She's not spoiling any of the story. She gives examples of books if you've liked that you will. She gives context. And she even warns you, it does start off it's a bit slow paced, which
Mhm.
if Tig had said, it moved too slow for me and I need a little more action, I'd be like, "Okay, thank you. That's context that makes sense. I understand that this is not
Mhm.
your bag." Totally get it.
Exactly.
So, I think this is like spectacular review.
Well, now I wanna go read A Dowry of Blood because I've never heard of that book, and it sounds great. Like, I'm gonna reverse engineer the referral from that. Like, thank you.
Have it over here on one of my Post-its
That's
because
really
I
funny.
read it. I
Yeah.
added Addie LaRue too, but I added that because of you. So, yeah.
Addie LaRue is just beautiful. God, that's a good story.
Yeah, I'm into
Um,
V. Schwab now. I'm sold.
yeah,
Game on.
yeah. She's incredible. She's really something else. All right. Heather, will you tell us what you're reading next?
Okay, I've had this one on the list for a very long time, and I found the entire set, like 80% off, so I just bought all 3 books. Yeah, yeah. I am reading Belladonna by Adeline Grace.
That
I've
has
heard the
been on
series.
all the book talk girlies lists.
Yeah, and it across the board seems like they all enjoy it, and it's a good time, and I'm in the mood for a good time. I've been doing standalones lately, or not entirely, but I've been doing more standalones and a little bit less romantasy, so I think I need a break from some of the heavier stuff.
Sometimes you need a little levity.
Yeah. So what are you reading, my Morgan? Oh, the Holy Grail.
Yeah. So I finally took a trip to the bookstore and bought my copy of The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in the Shadowborn duet of the Crowns of Nyaxia series. That is a tongue twister. Please say that 10 times fast. I am so excited. This is book 2 of Misha and number 1 simp Asar. And I just know it's going to be full of romance and so good. And I'm excited. I'm excited to
Don't
finally.
forget the cliffhanger of Vincent.
Right. Oh my God.
Especially
I
after
forgot about that.
I know, especially after we just finished Ashes for the show. Oh my God.
Anyways, no more spoilers. Anyways, if you want to find out more about Crowns of Nyaxia, you should listen to our deep dives where we deep dive the first 2 of the Nightborn duet, and we are about to start our deep dive of the Shadowborn duet. So I'm excited to read the second one and get a little more Misha in my life because it's the best.
Like
So
sunshine on a cloudy day.
we will be back, speaking of the Shadowborn duet, we will be back next time with our very first deep dive into The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent.
And that's been our show. Stay filthy. Your hosts, producers, and audio sorceresses are Heather Baxendale and Morgan DeRocher, who somehow makes this show happen with a combination of enthusiasm and emotional damage. Our theme music is Magistar by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. You can find A Pot of Wings and Filth on all major streaming platforms at our home base at Podomatic. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at A Pot of Wings and Filth for updates and fun content. And don't forget to check out show notes for important links. If you're loving the pod, please give us a follow or drop a rating. Your support helps keep the magic alive and helps other Romantasy fans find us.